CNN has officially fired anchor Chris Cuomo effective immediately. Here's Jim Acosta making the announcement.
This is CNN Breaking News.
And we have breaking news to report to you right now about CNN anchor Chris Cuomo. Earlier this week, Cuomo was suspended from CNN after documents revealed he had been involved more than previously known in shaping his brother, former Governor Andrew Cuomo's defense. Chris Cuomo, we should point out, has now been terminated here at CNN.
Just hours after CNN broke the news, the New York Times reported on the emergence of new sexual misconduct allegations against Chris Cuomo himself, levied by a former junior colleague of his at another network. The Times reports that the anonymous complaint was brought to CNN on Wednesday following Cuomo's suspension.
A CNN spokesperson said in a statement, based on the report we received regarding Chris's conduct with his brother's defense, we had cause to terminate. When new allegations came to us this week, we took them seriously and saw no reason to delay taking immediate action. In a piece for the New York Post, friend of the show, Batya Ungar-Sargon, criticizes the, quote, wrong misdeed Chris Cuomo was seemingly punished for, saying in part, sexual misconduct is a serious matter, and Chris was unethical in using his media network to track accusers and even dig up dirt on them. But it does nothing to minimize those allegations, to say that both brothers engaged in something much worse and have gotten a free pass from the press. The brothers Cuomo were brought down for the wrong thing. Here to expand on this is Newsweek deputy opinion editor and author Batya Ungar-Sargon. Batya, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. And can you expand on that? What do you think was the right thing that Chris Cuomo should have been brought down for?
You know, it's so funny. There's such a parallel between what Chris Cuomo and what Andrew Cuomo were brought down for, and then in my mind, what they should have been brought down for. So in the case of Andrew Cuomo, you know, he had overseen basically a disastrous COVID policy when it came to New Yorkers most vulnerable. He wrote this edict in March where he forced nursing homes to take back COVID positive patients. And that edict was applicable for 2 months, during which time 6,000 COVID positive seniors were sent back to nursing homes where they spread the virus like wildfire, and 15,000 seniors were killed. And who knows how many of them would have survived if they hadn't been sent back into that environment. And he did the same thing to the developmentally disabled, 552 of whom died of the virus. Now, that was a huge scandal. And when it came to light, it also came out that Andrew Cuomo had done a lot to cover it up. But this didn't get him ousted from his role as governor. It wasn't until it came out that he had sexually harassed his colleagues that suddenly, you know, the blood was out for Andrew Cuomo. And of course, sexual harassment is very, very bad. I'm not trying to minimize it, but I think that there's a real sickness in a society that says that sexual harassment is a worse crime than signing the death warrants of the most vulnerable people who cannot advocate on their own behalf. And I have to say that when it comes to Chris Cuomo, there's totally the same thing happened, right? You know, throughout the COVID pandemic, he did not cover his brother's scandals. He did not cover the senior deaths. Instead, what he did was he was, you know, back channeling, helping his brother, using his journalistic network in order to help him fight sexual harassment claims. Okay, so when that came out, CNN suspended him, but they didn't fire him until he had his own sexual harassment allegation that's over 10 years old from when he was working at a different network. So what CNN essentially did was it took this opportunity for real soul searching and turned it into a story of, yes, I'm going to say it, MeToo overreach.
Yeah. I mean, I think that statement leaves it, well, I agree with you, but I think the statement leaves it maybe slightly ambiguous when they're talking about the conduct that recently came to mind. If they're, and they might have been, I think they very well might have fired, or probably would have fired him anyway. But you're right. But then this other thing comes along and they say, all right, well, we're not even going to deal with this anymore. This is over. Which I guess to your point can give the appearance that that's the. But in this case, it's like that's the straw that broke the camel's back or something. And of course, I would have advocated for him. He should have not due process because it's not a criminal procedure, but he has some right to rebut that charge. But the other thing we have adjudicated, we know enough. He should certainly go. So it is an example of you're saying the network could have handled this a little bit differently to make it clear that the violation of basic norms of journalism is what means he can no longer be a host, not a MeToo accusation that we haven't really fully grappled with.
And actually, Brian Stelter on his CNN show yesterday did confirm that the straw that broke the camel's back was the sexual harassment allegation, which was also then reported by the New York Post. So I do think that it really did come down to that. That sort of pushed it over the edge. But whereas before, a week ago, Stelter was reporting that, after the suspension, maybe he would be back in January.
Yeah. Well, one of CNN's principal critics weighed in on the firing. Former President Donald Trump taunted Cuomo at an event at Mar-a-Lago on Saturday, saying, quote, he should have never had a job in the first place, while Senator Rand Paul called the firing, quote, a small step toward CNN regaining any credibility. So, Rand left open the possibility of redemption. I don't know that Donald Trump would feel the same way unless CNN started running like wildly pro-Trump stuff, and then it'd be the greatest network that ever lived. But what do you think CNN should do to rehabilitate itself among not that the whole network needs rehabilitation, not that I disagree with everything they do, I like some of Stelter's reporting. What should they do to convey to viewers that they do take journalism norms seriously, and they do want to in an adversarial fashion cover people like Andrew Cuomo when they're engaged in wrongdoing?
Well, there is actually even reporting now that CNN is planning to be moving back to more straight news and less opinion journalism. But I have to say, Robbie, I feel like there's also a deeper problem here, not just about CNN, but about the way that, the media itself is deeply enmeshed in political elites, economic elites, intellectual elites. All of these people go to the same schools, they live in the same neighborhoods. So I think that the problem is so much deeper than just CNN. It's a problem of what happens when the journalism class, the fourth estate, becomes assimilated into the elites, which is that it is on the side of power literally, and it becomes much harder to advocate for people who don't have it because you just don't see yourself in them, right? It's so much easier for a journalist to identify with a woman who's been sexually harassed at a very good white collar job, right? Working for the governor, let's say, right? Which is a terrible thing to have happened. And it was very easy for us to identify with that because it's happened to a lot of us, than it is for us to identify with a developmentally disabled person who has no one advocating for them, who's poor, who lives in a government run home, and I think that's just a real problem with 21st century American journalism across the board.
And to Donald Trump's point, can you help explain to somebody confused about Chris Cuomo's rise how he did wind up there in the first place? I mean, I understand that he was the son of a powerful political figure, the brother of another powerful political figure, but there are a lot of scions of political dynasties all around the world, and only a few of them wind up at the 8 or 9 o'clock p.m.
Nepotism, a horrible problem that Donald Trump is very against.
Yes. Trump would never elevate anybody to a position they're not qualified for due to their family connections. But that being said, how did he maintain this position for so long?
I think he was really good at it. Unlike a lot of the CNN hosts, he really didn't engage in the kind of, uber elite linguistic versions of signaling to working class viewers, this channel is not for you, which happens a lot on CNN and is why the channel has lost so many working class viewers. It went from being 25% college educated viewership in 2012 to 40% college educated viewership in 2019, and it's certainly, even less now. So basically, I think that he did have that kind of folksy, more down to earth vibe, although recently he really has engaged in more of the race baiting that you see as a kind of prerequisite for being on the news, right, on a liberal channel.
So you basically just called him Italian, which I can say I'm Italian, so we can say this about our own people.
And he also, not that distantly, interviewed Adolph Reed, and maybe that was the camel that broke the straw's back, and that's the thing he really got pushed out for. But Batya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And people should go Google up that Adolph Reed interview. It's actually really good. But we'll have more Rising right after this.